Here we are back at Beaver Creek. It's August now, and we're just checking up on some of our restoration sites that were done in June and doing a little bit of maintenance, watering some of the plugs that were planted, the small little seedlings that were planted, to make sure that they are going to be able to grow. This Beaver Creek restoration project has been a collaboration with Cows and Fish, and we've got 6 sites along the creek where we're trying to decompact some of the soil or the substrate and reduce the erosion and the amount of sediment that's ending up in the creek. When we were here in June, they had the machinery out and they were doing what's called rough and loose. So they were just trying to decompact some of the soil here. These were non-designated trails that were coming down that people were using, and they were basically just funneling sediment into the creek. So they've decompacted that soil with the machinery, and they've put in this erosion control, like these biologs or sediment logs. You can also see that they've planted some little shrubs here and there. These are native shrubs that would have been harvested as seed and grown in a greenhouse and then planted. And we're here today to give them a bit of water, give them a drink. You can see as they were using the machinery to do the rough and loose and decompact the trails here that were not designated, they were careful to avoid the living vegetation that's here because its roots are helping to stabilize that slope. You can also see that it leaves behind a really diverse and varied terrain. So you've got these little pockets, these little dips in the ground that will collect water and slow the movement of water down into the creek. And those provide sheltered little spots for these shrubs to grow. And then the hills, the little mini hills, also provide a varied terrain. And these provide little micro-habitats or microclimates that have little mini north and south facing slopes, so there's wetter and drier areas, and it really helps to promote a more diverse and varied landscape and therefore ecosystem. One of the techniques that you can use in bioengineering is laying down willow fascines, and so what all that is basically willow stakes that are laid down in bundles horizontally. And so they've done that here, and you can see that these ones that have been laid down have already sprouted leaves and are growing. So that's great. Not only are they going to grow and provide vegetation for this area, but the fascines that are buried, the willow stakes, will provide some erosion control as well. Yay! I'm Shannon. Good day. Here you can see a couple of those willow fascines that were laid perpendicular to the trail, and they were alive, so they've started growing little shoots, and we'll get some willows growing. So springs like this, they just come out of the hills, and there's tons of them in the Porcupine Hills. That's kind of what they're known for. And there's a big source of our water that comes filtered off the Rocky Mountains, and they feed the creeks and rivers, especially in late summer, like right now when it's hot. If there's no rain, that's what's feeding our rivers. It's this spring water, that groundwater. So when the spring water comes out of the hills naturally, the first point of it getting filtered and flowing towards the creek is right here. It goes through the vegetation towards the creek. And so when there's all this sediment it's not being filtered. It's actually being degraded before it makes it to the creeks and rivers. Here we have a stretch of non-designated trail that was running parallel to the creek, that we also had the machinery in here to do some rough and loose to decompact the soil so that the riparian vegetation can start to regrow again. Last time we were here, the contractors were installing these hitching rails in a similar style to what the government uses. And they're just to block off this non-designated trail and remind people to steer clear of ponds and creeks.
Sure.
I have the bestest dog in the whole world. She is so cute. No, I'm just kidding. I mean, not kidding, but